Okay, here's how Miro works. See, it's amazing.
What's everyone doing at David's desk?
Ever since marketing started using Miro's collaborative online whiteboard, he thinks all our other teams should sign up.
Why?
He says Miro's making his meetings disappear. And if every team gets on it, that means even less meetings. They're using Miro for brainstorms, mind maps, customer research.
So could we use Miro instead of having another 100 meetings for every round of feedback?
Yep. You can comment, react to ideas, even leave a recording on the board.
And what about presentations?
There are Miro templates for that.
How do you know so much about Miro?
I've actually been using it all along. I just used a Miro board to plan the best vacation.
Okay, I'm on board.
See how Miro users save up to 80 hours every year by meeting less and doing more. Get on board at Miro.com with 3 boards free forever. That's MIRO.com.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You can turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This is gonna be just like senior year, except for funner.
Hey guys, I'm Kendra.
Hi everyone, I'm Mercedes, and this week we're talking about the ultimate bridesmaid in 27 dresses.
The best movie ever. But of course, it is. We have to kick it off with our celebrity crush of the week. Who are you crushing on this week?
Okay, so Brockhampton had their final show as a group on Saturday at Coachella weekend 2. So all 13 of them are my crushes of the week because I love them, and I send love to all my boy bands out there. I adore them.
Mercedes, I swear you teach me so much. I heard of Brockhampton, did not know that was a group, thought it was a one person type of thing.
Yeah. The joke is like, who's Brock? But
I love that. Okay, so I just got back from a wedding in Atlanta, and I'm also currently watching season 3 of the TV show Atlanta.
Ooh.
And so I the whole time I was over there, I was just thinking about the show. So I would say my crush of the week is Chris Davis, who plays Tracy in Atlanta, because I think he's hilarious. And I also met him in real life at a tattoo parlor of all places.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and he asked me like how I recognized him, and I was just like, he has one of those faces because he was wearing a mask. And also too, I am such a celebrity magnet. I can spot if there's a celebrity within like a 20-foot perimeter, like I will sniff you out.
You know, real recognizes real. So.
Exactly.
That's
No,
why.
he literally had a mask like covering his whole face, and he was like, "How'd you recognize?" I was just like, "I just do. It's just your presence. It's your aura, man."
It's your aura. Yes. I love that.
All right, guys, we are going to swing into the TLDR. This is just a time where we like to recap the movie for anyone who has not seen it. Warning, there are spoilers ahead, and if you have not seen this movie, you can stream it on HBO Max. All right, let's get into it. From a very young age, Jane, played by Katherine Heigl, has understood that the one thing she's good at are weddings. Thank goodness for that, because she's in a ton of them, even multiple on the same day. See, Jane has a lot of friends and is constantly a bridesmaid. At one of her weddings, she meets Kevin, played by the ever so handsome James Marsden,
Yes.
who is a journalist who writes about, you guessed it, weddings. Kevin is actually a cynic, though, and doesn't believe in love. And his cynicism just really challenges Jane, especially because she herself is in love with her boss, George, played by Edward Burns. It's the classic story of unrequited love, though. Like, he's not interested in her. Things take a turn for the worse when Jane's younger sister, Tess, played by Malin Akerman, comes into town. Tess is just so beautiful, and it takes absolutely no time at all for George to fall in love with her. Bad news for Jane, though, because now she's stuck planning her sister's wedding to the man she loves. The one constant in Jane's life, though, is Kevin's annoying presence. Like, he's just always showing up when he's least wanted. He sees Jane as a ticket to get out of writing the commitment section and starts to draw closer to her to write a story about her. So when George and Tess get engaged, Jane starts seeing Kevin even more because it turns out he's writing a story about their wedding. The more time the two spend together, though, the more Jane starts to let loose and open up, but maybe too loose, because while caught in a storm and after a few drinks, Kevin and Jane do the dirty, only for everything to blow up when Jane discovers the article he's written about her. As if it wasn't already an uphill battle, Jane discovers that her sister, Tess, has completely ruined their mother's coveted wedding dress. This is a turning point for Jane. She learns to stand up for herself. She exposes her sister to George, forcing him to call off their wedding. She confesses her feelings to George and at the same time realizes that her true feelings lie with Kevin. So finally, after being a bridesmaid 27 times, Jane gets to finally be the bride. This, yay. This is a 2008 film written by Alan Brosh McKenna, who created the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend that I never watched, but like was such a huge thing. Like
I love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
I feel like everyone watched it. She also wrote the 2014 version of Annie, and get this, she wrote The Devil Wears Prada. Like arguably one of the best movies, period. Just like
Yeah. Can you
period.
imagine having that on your resume? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Seriously, I would flex that all the time. I think it's one of her best works to date. This movie is directed by Anne Fletcher, who also did Step Up.
Oh, yes. We love Step Up.
I know. She also directed The Proposal and The Guilt Trip. So there's a lot to unpack in this movie, and I feel like there's a lot of fun industry facts. So I know you got some for me, Mercedes. What do you got?
Oh my God, I got a few. So my first one is the writer, Aline Brosh McKenna, had a different plan for this movie altogether. She really wanted an ending where Jane is alone. And she really didn't want the romance to be a factor at all in this. She wanted Jane to just have like a self-actualization journey and really like learn how to tell people no and like really no longer be a people pleaser. But, you know, in the early 2000s, the studios were like, no, this needs to be a conventional rom-com.
Yeah.
So we need that. Like, she really described this movie as an and a man model, which is just that the romance takes the back seat. Like, it's not priority compared to Jane's personal journey, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting that the wardrobe department of this movie had such a hard time designing bridesmaid dresses
Oh my
for
God, yeah.
Katherine Heigl because of her figure. Just everything looked good on her. And so
Course.
they just like, I know, what an amazing problem to have, but they were just
I
like
know.
struggling. So they kind of made like the dresses more ugly rather than like making the way that it worked on Katherine
Yeah.
Heigl look ugly. So I just thought that was so funny. Like,
Yeah, some of them were
challenge.
crazy.
What was your favorite one? Did you have a favorite?
Oh my
bridesmaid?
God. I think my favorite one is like the Gone with the Wind one. I was like, who is having this as a theme at their wedding?
I like the LA
With-
wedding one with the very short.
Oh, yes, the short one.
Yeah, because I saw that before I started living in LA, and I was like, wait, I don't get it. I get it now.
I love that. And Jane's character was actually inspired by one of McKenna's friends, who was a bridesmaid at 12 different weddings.
Oh no.
I know. Can you believe?
I mean, I love my friends, but actually, like, I don't know if I can do weddings anymore. Mercedes, I'm
Like as a guest or like as a bridesmaid?
just as a guest, even like.
There's so much money, even
There's
just to be
so
guest.
much money, and I'm like looking at my bank account, and I'm like, how is it that all of my money is going towards other people, and none of it towards me?
Oh my gosh, that's totally, yeah. Jane was probably having that same revelation.
And she had like a nice apartment too, and I was like, how are you affording this and going to all of these?
Oh my- When her sister's like, this is tiny, this is cute. I'm like, how dare you call that apartment tiny? Look at all her closet space.
Seriously, okay. Speaking of her sister, so Katherine Heigl is actually a few months younger than Malin Akerman, who plays her little sister, and I thought that was
Oh, I didn't know.
interesting. Yeah. They're-
I love when that happens. That's so funny.
I feel like it makes the chemistry between the two a lot more authentic, almost, because it's like, I feel like it's because the age difference isn't actually there. You
Yeah.
really have to rely on your skill of acting.
They're really playing it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's so interesting to me about this movie is that it really aligns. It came out in 2008, and it really aligns with this time where Katherine Heigl was honestly getting blacklisted in Hollywood and getting a lot of flack in the press for discussing really important topics like pay equity and sexism. But in 2008, people didn't want to hear it, and she was labeled as difficult. So I just think it's a really good juxtaposition with this movie where Jane is learning how to say no and speak for herself, and Katherine Heigl was also being shamed for speaking up for herself.
Yeah.
To have a movie with this message of being like, no, take up space and like have your voice be heard, and then for her to be getting flack at the same time, it speaks volumes on its own.
Yeah. Mercedes, I've been thinking about this a lot because I actually met Katherine Heigl. She came in at one of my old jobs to pitch a show
Oh, wow.
with her mother, and she couldn't have been lovelier. She was so nice, just like very appreciative, very complimentary. Like she was great. And I wonder if it's time for us as an industry to formally apologize to her, because she did get blacklisted for talking about
Yeah.
things that we're talking about now. And it's like she was 100% right. Like even Ellen Pompeo came out recently and said that she was 100% right about everything. So
Good. I'm glad people are finally like voicing it.
yeah.
I mean, you're right. She deserves so much more recognition because she was trying to have these conversations years before they were actually becoming mainstream.
Exactly. All right, guys, we're going to move over into Time Capsule. We just like to recall where we were, what we were doing at the time that this movie came out. So I feel like I have the worst memory in the world because I never remember where I was or what I was doing when I saw a movie for the first time, unless it was like in theaters. So
Yeah.
here's a fun fact about me. I've actually kept every single movie ticket since 2003. My very first, I know, my very first one was Drumline. And
So good.
yeah. And literally every single time I went into the theater and had to get like a physical ticket, I've kept it. So I have like
That's
I don't
amazing.
even know how many I have. But I don't remember where I was when I first saw this movie, but I do remember where I was when I met James Marsden.
Yeah. Tell us. Tell us.
I know. Okay. So when I first moved out to LA, oh gosh, it was like literally right as I moved out here because I remember I went to this bar called Rock and Riley's in West Hollywood, and it was so fun, and everyone would always go there. And I wasn't dressed like the cutest, but that's because I like didn't have any clothes. I had just got out of college.
Right.
I like had no clothes.
Exactly.
So I'm leaving. I go outside of Rock and Riley's, and James Marsden is there with a friend, leaning on a freaking parking meter and just like talking with his friend. And there are so many people outside, and no one said anything. I walked right up to him, like beeline right up to him, and I was just like, James, you're like, I'm very good around celebrities. Like, I don't get starstruck. I mean, I get starstruck by myself, like in the moment. I don't get starstruck. I just go up and I'm like, listen, you're an excellent actor. Thank you so much for your work. Like things like that.
Yeah.
He was so nice, and we ended up talking, and I told him that I had just graduated from Syracuse University. Turns out he's an Orangeman. He's a fan. He like really liked our basketball team or our football team, and so he talked with me about that for a little bit. And I got a picture with him, and he just has the best smile. I like am pregnant thinking about his smile. He is so beautiful. He has the best smile in the entire world, and I'm just thinking about how he literally put his arm around me and. All of my life.
Gosh, what a memory. Like that smile is so captivating on screen. So I can't even imagine in person and like up close. Wow, wow, wow. I love that you've met both of the stars of this movie and they've both been awesome.
I know.
That makes me feel so happy.
I know. I will say it's very rare that I have a bad interaction with a celebrity. I have had them, but it's very rare. So I'm grateful for that. I don't know if that's just me as a person, or the capacity that I'm meeting them in, because it's usually through work, and so they're more professional or whatever. So yeah, it's a thing. I met this cast. Got me Judy Greer and Malin Nickerman.
Oh my! I love Judy Greer. I read her book and I just adore her.
Oh, she wrote a book. See, another thing you taught me today.
Yeah.
So where were you when you saw this for the first time?
So I was 12 when this movie came out. I was in 6th grade, and I've loved it since middle school. Anytime it was on, because it was one of those that would play on like E and ABC Family all the time.
Yeah.
I'd watch it like any Saturday that it was on. I love it. And it also came out like a year after Hairspray came out. So just James Marsden's impact on preteen me. So at like such a peak moment where I was just like, I love you. Like you just like don't even know like how to like feel because you're just like so overwhelmed by your own emotions.
I love you. I love that. Okay, if we were talking about what else we were doing in 2008, so that was my sophomore year of high school, which arguably was my hardest year in school. I was taking AP World History, and it was just kicking my butt, but also that was the year that I took driver's ed. So this is kind of a long story, but I have a point to it, I promise. Okay. So I had the biggest crush on this guy named Gabe. I sat next to him in driver's ed, and I've just been thinking about him a lot lately because I used to write about him every single day in my diary. And I cannot find that diary to save my life, Mercedes. And I'm worried that it's like a diary that I had that I intentionally ripped up. And I'm worried that it was all of my entries were in that diary. And I'm going to be really sad if that's true. If that's the case. So the thing is, I was in this like friendship trio with Gabe and then my best friend at the time, Paige. Now, I thought that Gabe liked Paige because literally every person breathing liked Paige. She was one of those girls, just beautiful. Like she was really cool.
Yeah.
And everyone liked her. And so we hung out a lot, and I thought that was just kind of always a case that he liked her. But then like as I think about it, he used to text me good morning every single morning. And I remember telling him to stop because Like, one, it would wake me up. Like, he'd text me at like 6 in the morning. I'd be like, I'm not awake yet. And then two, like, I didn't want to like get in the way of him and Paige. Like, I don't think Paige liked him back, but I don't know why I felt like I just didn't want to get in the way. And so I reconnected with Paige a few years ago, and I was just like, do you remember Gabe? Do you remember like that whole thing and like all of us like hanging out and stuff like that? She's like, oh yeah, Gabe liked you so much. And I was like,
Oh
wait,
my
what?
God.
I was like, wait, he did? I've always been so bad at understanding if someone is flirting with me. Like, I just don't, because I think people are just naturally nice to me because I feel like I'm a nice
'Cause you're
person.
so
So like,
nice.
kinda,
Yeah.
thank you. Like, you attract, what you are. So people are always just like very nice to you, but it's never because they're interested in me. And I just feel like I wonder if that's like something that I missed out on because I was just misreading the signs. Anyways, Gabe is now like a photojournalist, and he like lives in Greece,
Wow.
and he works with refugees, and I would just love to reconnect with him because he has aged so well. Like, he still looks so handsome. And
Gabe, it is your time. Hit
yeah.
Kendra up. Oh my God, this would be the story of the
Yeah,
century.
he's still a very attractive man. And I tried to shoot my shot like 3 or 4 years ago on Facebook, and he like replied once and then like ghosted me. So, Gabe Green, if you are listening to this, please hit me up,
Amazing.
slide my DMs.
It's so funny, like when you have a crush and then you find out years later that you're just like, oh, I was so dense.
Yeah.
Like, how did they not know? Like, what? And you're like, yeah, no, everyone knew.
See, now I'm wondering if a lot more people have liked me in the past than I have thought myself. Do you ever
I'm
think that?
sure, Kendra.
I don't
I feel like
know.
there's always more people that like you than anyone thinks. Because think about how many times you shoot your shot versus when you don't, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that ratio is pretty similar with a lot of people because people are afraid of rejection, especially when you're younger.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Oh gosh. Okay, do you remember what you were doing? Like, where you were in 2008?
I
How old were
also
you?
have a story, Kendra.
Oh, okay, let's hear this.
And
That's a
I
story time.
rarely have a story. So I was in 6th grade, and so this movie came in January, and this story takes place in like May, like end of 6th grade. And a
Yeah.
major crush on this boy at school. We were friends. We had a lot of classes together. That's always the way. It's like the one you have all the classes with. You're like, I see you all the time. I like you.
Yeah.
And I was majorly crushing. So my school, we would have beginning of the year camping trips and then end of the year camping trips some years. So in 6th grade, we had an end of the year one at the sand dunes in Colorado.
Oh.
And at sand dunes, he started dating a different girl in my grade who I didn't really know well at the time. And I was so bummed. And I went home and I listened to Teardrops on my guitar 42 times that weekend.
Oh.
And you may be asking, Mercedes, how do you know the exact number? I tallied it. I tallied it because so I'd remember because I wanted it to be an accurate depiction in the future movie about my life. That's what I was planning.
Mercedes, you are a character.
Yeah.
Full character.
If there's one thing I am, it's cinematic and dramatic. Like, I know. And like so many things I'll do, I'm just like, this will be so good. And I just wanted it to be so accurate. And I was like, this would be such a good scene in the movie about my life. Like, I remember planning it out. And I think I wanted to be like perform heartbreak more than I was actually sad because it was 6th grade. Like, I don't think I was that distraught. But I do remember just being a little bummed. Isn't that so funny?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny, but also sad. I feel you. Like, I feel the younger version of you, the pain that you were in. Like,
Mhm.
middle school crushes honestly just felt like the end of the world. They
Yeah.
really did. And I don't know what gravity or things that we went through at that time that made us feel that way, but they just really did feel that way.
It's just feeling things for the first time at that capacity that you're just like, I don't know what to do. And then you're dealing with puberty. So then all these emotions and hormones are happening. And you're like, I can't communicate anything. Like, I don't have the language for this.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that is so true. Oh. All right, guys, we're going to move over to the Rom-Com Hall of Fame. But of course, Mercedes, we got to roast this movie because this is 2008. So obviously there are some things
Yes.
that don't age well. And I have a big one.
Yes.
The entire character of Tess,
Mm-hmm.
her entire just existence. She is such a pick-me girl and a narcissist. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I think she-
Offensive on all accounts.
on all accounts.
Ugh, I
Yeah.
did not like her.
And it's just so funny because we didn't have a word for the type of girl that she was back then. But you know those girls who are just like, "Ugh, I don't know why women don't like me. Like, I'm
Yeah,
such
she
a
literally said, she's like, "I've never had any girlfriends." And I'm like, "That's a red flag." Like, if
yeah.
I meet a woman who, like, has never had any friends who are women, I'm like, something needs to some therapy needs to happen here.
Exactly, and she's just like, "I'm such a guy's girl," and I'm okay, I'm so behind, but I'm just now on the last episode of Love is Blind season 2, and she just reminds me of Mallory, because Mallory, I feel like,
Oh
is
my
also such a pick me
God.
girl, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm glad I detected that. Mallory is such a pick me girl, and it drives me insane, but she's
Mallory, when she's
but
like, "I'm a guy's girl," I was like,
yeah.
"No, roll
Yeah,
my
I
eyes."
know, I know. It's, like, so annoying, but I also feel like I think she is a grandiose narcissist. I have done a lot of research on, 1, narcissistic personality disorder, and then just narcissists in general, because there's a psychologist on YouTube I really like. But there are 4 types of narcissists, and the grandiose is the most type. I just feel like one of the character traits of a grandiose narcissist is they cannot take responsibility. And that is literally one of Jane's lines to Tess. She's just like, "You cannot take responsibility for anything." And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's 100% right. She can't. I just don't understand how you are going to lie your way into a marriage.
No,
Like,
I'll
how did
never
she think that was gonna end?
She didn't think about the end at all. She was just thinking about herself. And like from the beginning, her like first comment to Jane is like, "Oh, I'm the same age mom was when mom got married." And then immediately she finds this guy who's like willing to marry her
Mhm.
and is just hooked on that. And
Yeah.
then will do like anything. And then oh my God, the way she treats Pedro,
Yeah.
the boy, oh
Yeah.
my God, cleaning their apartment,
I
I
know.
was livid. And just like, I don't know, she has so many horrible qualities. And at the end, it's like nothing was like really redeemed and like no lessons were really learned. Like
Yeah.
Jane apologizes to her for
Mhm.
taking care of her.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
I
also
hate
too,
it.
like, we're supposed to, like, you know how she gives that whole speech to George at Jane's wedding, and
Yeah.
she's like, "I have a roommate." Okay, is that supposed to make you redeemable now that you live with you live with a roommate? Like, what?
Yeah. That's not impressive. Join the club.
It's not impressive. It is not impressive. Speaking of, I just the relationship between Jane and Tess, like, I don't fully understand just because I have a sister that I'm not close with, but I
Mhm.
will say if we're talking about quotes, like, my favorite line is when Jane says,
That was yesterday. Today you're just some bitch who broke my heart and cut up my mother's wedding dress.
Iconic.
I know, I was applauding after she said that. I was like, "Come on, Jane, come through."
Yes. I'm like, Jane, come on, say something. Like, stand up for yourself. Like that. I'm so glad that it finally like hit her to like say something to her.
Yeah, exactly, like, that was the breaking point. She was just like,
Yeah.
"No, I cannot handle this."
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that was a nightmare. What she did to the dress. Oh,
Ugh,
it was
I know.
crazy.
She was like, "I saved you all the other pieces, bitch."
Yeah. I don't
So
want your scraps. Are
I
you
know.
kidding?
So annoying.
Right.
What was your favorite quote, Mercedes?
My favorite quote was after the spectacular Benny and the Jets scene, which is by far the best scene in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
When James Marsden looks up at Katherine Heigl, smiles that squinty-eyed smile, helps her down from the bar, looks her in the eyes, and is like,
I cried like a baby at the Keller wedding.
and you're like, my heart stopped. I was like, I wasn't even at the Keller wedding. I cried too.
I love that. I love that. All right. So, Mercedes, if this movie popped up on your Tinder feed, would you swipe left or would you swipe right?
I'd swipe right because I'm forever in love with James Marsden, and the chemistry during the Benny and the Jet scene is just so good. And I think that's what makes this movie so special is just their chemistry, really. And plus, Judy Greer is BFFing the hell out of this movie. Like
Yes.
she knows her job and she does it so well.
You understood the
And
assignment.
exactly. And what I really do appreciate about this movie is that it's really about Jane growing and learning how to be herself without self-sacrificing and going above and beyond for people who probably wouldn't do the same for her. Like the romance comes second, but it's still really beautiful and it
Yeah.
feels like it makes sense. There's some parts of it that I'm like, okay.
Mm.
But overall, I just like love that it's about Jane's journey. And I appreciate this movie like goes against the grain and really shows Jane's extreme generosity
Mhm.
as a flaw, where like so many movies it's shown as such a positive trait and like women are applauded for going above and beyond for people who probably don't need it. So then it's become this behavior that feels sometimes like conditioned or like a default for some women to have, and it's like almost this expectation that like, oh, you need to be so selfless that it like hurts you almost,
Yeah.
where here it shows you that that's actually not good for you and being selfish is a positive.
Mhm.
And learning how to say no is important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I think about this movie, I love this movie, and how I quantify like a good rom-com is one that you could just throw on a Friday night or really any night of the week, and it just gives you like a good feeling. And I definitely get
Yeah.
this from that movie. But if we're talking about specific moments that I look for in rom-coms, I do think this movie doesn't necessarily hit them for me, and I'll explain why. I feel like if this were to pop up on my Tinder feed, I would do that thing where I exit the app and then hope it doesn't pop up back in my feed. Just because I've seen this movie a million times, and as much as I love James Marsden, I have a really hard time with cynics. It's because I'm a total and complete optimist. I'm also an empath, so I really feel what other people are feeling, and it would be hard for me to feel that many negative emotions consistently, right? My ex was a huge cynic, and he would just like suck the life out of me. So I just feel like cynics really take the energy out of the room and just like suck all the fun and goodness out of every situation. And so to hear him complain and complain throughout the film is really hard for me. I also wouldn't classify this big moment as like one that stands out in rom-com history. I liked her speech. It was kind of mediocre, and the moment didn't get me. Like, it didn't make my heart melt like how other like, okay, like Just Friends, like the ending with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart. That one makes my heart completely melt. And that is something that I really look for in rom-coms. I want to feel that like love, because that's why I watch them. And I just like I love how it ends with all the bridesmaids there for Jane on her big wedding. But also, it's so interesting how we never do a deep dive into any of these friendships that she has. Like, she mentions that she has a lot of close friends, which I can relate to because I have a lot of close friends. That's why I go to so many weddings. But also, like, the only one that we see her with is Casey. We don't see her, like, even talking on the phone to other people or anything like that. And they made her seem like she just had no social life. But obviously, she does if all of these people are asking her to be in her wedding. Like, she has a social life. So I would have liked to have seen that more and kind of gotten to know that side
Yeah.
of Jane more, you know?
Yeah, it feels like most of those friends were really just like they knew that she'd be good at being a bridesmaid and like do
Yeah.
her jobs and then be like, "Oh yeah, I'll have you on.
Yeah.
Like I need you for this." And then she just clung to the feeling of being needed so much. I think we can all relate to that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it's almost like manic the way like she needs that. And like she's driven through people being like, "Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Jane."
Yeah.
And that's just great. Like, I would be exhausted if
I'd
I
be
lived her
absolutely
life.
exhausted. I could not do it. I could not do
Yeah.
it. Oh gosh. Speaking of things we can't do, we're gonna move over to couples therapy, guys. We just like to give dating advice for the characters just on how they can improve their relationship because Mercedes and I are experts at that.
Yeah, haven't you heard?
I know, seriously. I just feel like Jane, as we all know, she just needs a backbone. Like I said, I've been going to a lot of weddings recently because all of my friends are getting married. And again, it's killing my bank account. But I feel like more of my money needs to go towards me and not other people. I'm glad she stood up for herself in the end, but I really hope that continues. Like, I also need Jane to stop hiding her wants and desires behind other people. Like, she used weddings as a distraction. And when her and Kevin started having, I feel like when her and Kevin start having problems in their marriage, I don't want her to look for things as a distraction. I hope they learn how to communicate. I hope they move past like passive aggressiveness and they're able to actually verbalize what it is that they need and want. Because communication, I feel like if we could add percentages to what makes a relationship important, like communication is one, like absolutely over 50% of what makes a healthy relationship. So I just really hope they learn how to communicate properly before it's too late. I also feel like, okay, I'm sorry that I quote Dermot Kennedy so many times on this podcast, but he writes the most beautiful lyrics, but I always use this one. But he has a lyric that says, "Love is not designed for the cynical." And I feel like that line was written for Kevin. I know that he's been hurt, and I know that it probably hurts so badly to watch your fiance leave with your roommate from college. But that is something you cannot carry into another relationship because each person is different. And I just hope that he does not project that hurt and pain of his last relationship onto Jane because she's a good woman. She doesn't deserve that. So I hope
Yeah.
that healing happens for him.
I love that advice. So good. My advice is really along the same page. I mean, for Kevin, he is cynical and we know it comes from this major heartbreak. But I think for him, it's really about just trusting his own feelings and also trusting others and like trusting that they have like good and genuine intentions, which is important for us all. I think both these characters are oddly relatable. They're both two extremes, but I think they are incredibly relatable because
Yeah.
one has this deep-rooted fear of being hurt, so he has this, like, really hard exterior.
Mhm.
I mean, and, like, most of his criticisms of the wedding industry, valid, you know? Like, but also, like, I totally understand, like, cynics are completely draining,
Mhm.
and it's not fun to be with them 24/7.
Not
And
at all.
then Jane, on the other hand, I think she's really relatable to a lot of specifically women because she's the very extreme example of self-sacrifice and like toxic selflessness.
Mhm.
And that's never good. So she just really needs to continue to take up space for herself and stopping the extreme caretaking behavior because she needs to stop that so she can evolve. You know, like there's no growing if you're constantly focused on the people around you, you know? And that doesn't mean you stop caring. That means that in order to care for them in a better way, you have to care for yourself as well.
Yeah,
Like you have to make yourself a priority in order to like really treat the people that you care about well. And she's just so closed off and like doesn't vocalize her needs or her frustrations for so long because she expects the same in return, like the same behavior back. But the harsh truth is that most people aren't going to return your selfless favors.
Yeah.
And at least to the same degree that you would, you know? And you can't blame them for that either because you've made it so they don't feel the need to.
Yeah.
So when you're not putting those boundaries up and putting any expectations out there for the close relationships in your life, romantic, platonic, familial, anything,
Mhm.
then people are really just going to use you. And it's not really their intention either. It's not like most people are there to like really suck the life out of you, but if you're giving them everything, then they think that that's your capacity to give.
Yeah. That was so good, Mercedes. You had a lot of good points in there. I want to ask you, when you think about what makes a good friend, what qualities come to mind?
Ooh, I think a good listener, someone who's honest, but not someone who uses honesty as their default to like be cruel. You know, those people who are like, I'm just honest. And
Yeah,
you're like,
I
actually, you're just rude.
yeah.
Like, but I don't know. I think about my closest friendships and they're people who will really like call me out when I am kind of a little like in like a delusional state of being like, I'm the victim. They're like, actually, no, girl, you're not. Let's really
Yeah.
think about this. And so they'll call me out on things. And then, but they're also completely supportive of like all of my goals and everything I want to do. And
Yeah.
that's so amazing. And I just think a good listener, you know?
Yeah. I think of selflessness, and I'm starting to think that way because over the years, I've lost people that I thought were going to be in my life a lot longer. But I also, too, I think what makes a good friend is understanding that there are going to be seasons in your friendship where one person is going to need you, is going to need the other more than they have before. And that won't be forever. That will just last, like I said, for a season. But it's the ability to be there and to have the capacity to be there for that person
Mhm.
and not have this like tit for tat relationship. I think I'm experiencing that now in a friendship and it's just really hurting me. Like, it's just, it,
It's exhausting
yeah,
when it feels like, in order to get anything back, you have to give so much.
exactly.
And it shouldn't be like that. And I think also a huge important like aspect of friendship is recognizing that these things evolve
Mhm.
and it like ebbs and flows. Like there's this visual online where it shows like the shapes of different relationships, like the wavelengths and friends, it's like this wave of like coming together at certain points and then spreading apart. And I think of that with like all my closest friends. Like we have had moments where like we're really not talking that often. And it doesn't mean I don't care for them any less. It
Mhm.
just means like we have separate lives that are happening, you know? And I think that's a huge part of friendships. I think when we're younger, we think, oh, you're my best friend. We have to do everything together. We're inseparable. You understand codependency on a different level once you're growing up and you're like, oh no, like this is going to ebb and flow, just like any healthy relationship should.
Yeah, as all healthy relationships too should. And I feel like all healthy relationships too also demonstrate your partner's like love language. So if we're thinking about love language in this movie, I remember mentioning this last week. We always need a character whose love language is acts of service because it helps keep the narrative moving forward. But I also feel like people who give so much of themselves need that effort and support in return. So I would say that Jane gives acts of service, but she also needs it as well. So there's a line that Kevin has where he says that she deserves to be taken care of.
I
And
love that line.
I love that line. And Mercedes, let me tell you, I like broke down this time around. Like I've seen this movie a million times, but when he said that, I broke down because I'm just like, really feeling that. I feel like I have been so strong and independent for so long that I'm exhausted. Like, I want to be gentle and like calm and in companionship for a little bit, you know? I don't
Mhm.
always want to be strong and independent because that's hard. Like
Yeah,
I kind of want someone to take care of me right now in my life. And so I
exactly.
yeah,
And
it
that
hit me
strength and
different.
independence doesn't go anywhere. It just
Hmm.
means that you have other people to rely on when you already have these traits,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, it's totally exhausting to be in that position. And I love that Kevin like really sees her and sees her selflessness as a flaw too. Like he's the one who really points it out to her, being like, this isn't healthy for you. Where other people really use it to their advantage.
Hmm.
And the only two people who really call her out on that are her best friend and Kevin.
Hmm.
And that's how you know you have a good friend. And that's how you know you have
You
a
have a
good
good partner.
guy. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I would say Kevin gives quality time 100%, but
Mhm.
needs words of affirmation. I feel like he's always liked being around Jane. That's why he's always showing up where she is. And
Yeah.
with cynics, sometimes they need to hear those words like, I love you, I care about you, I'm not going anywhere. But they also need to see actions behind those words. So they need a lot of reassurance. So I think Kevin needs words of affirmation and acts of service as well.
That's so interesting because I flipped it because I was like, he obviously gives words of affirmation. Like she fell for him on paper because he's a writer.
Mm,
You know, like she was already swooning for him long before they met. And I think the fact that he is so good with his words and really like can tell her tough stuff, you know, and calls her out on her behavior. And she does the same for him, but I think she just needs that because it means that he really sees her and
mhm.
he's really pointing it out to her, and I think no one ever does that. People just let her go and they're like, "Okay, bye." So that's what I really like about them, you know? Like and then I think he needs quality time because the more that they spend time together, the more he's hanging out, he definitely gets way more comfortable. Like when they're trying on dresses and
Mhm.
she's really starting to open up and you can tell that that's something that hasn't happened to her in a while. You can tell he pulls back because he's getting so comfortable with this woman who essentially he's using at this point in the story for
Mhm.
his own journalistic goals. But yeah, I think he's almost a little scared of how comfortable he is with her through quality time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like this couple lasts in 5 years? What do you think?
I think they do. They balance each other out so well. They have great
Yeah.
chemistry. That's something that's important in any rom-com leads, you know?
Mhm.
And Kevin really sees Jane's self-sacrificing as an unhealthy trait and helps her realize that it's not okay and practices that with her. And I think that's just so important because he's not interested in her because of what she'll do for him, but it's because of who she is. And he helps her show how her selfishness can be beneficial.
Mhm.
And I think she also shows him another side to, I don't know, just the opposite of cynicism, you know, which I don't think he had ever had to confront before. Because
Yeah.
his guy friends weren't ever going to do that for him.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%, and all I will add to that is if they can remain honest in their feelings for each other, I would say yes, they
Yeah.
can last in 5 years. But that's all they need.
Mhm.
That's all they need. All right, guys. Heartthrob, heartthrob, heartthrob.
Yes.
I love okay, this is one of my favorite sections because I love hearing from you, Mercedes. Who of this cast would you take home and introduce to your friends and family?
Hello, Kevin. I love Kevin Doyle. He's a writer. He's charming. He's
Mhm.
grouchy, which I love. I love a grouchy boy. And he's hot.
Yeah.
And Jane is so right when she calls him sexy, when she's like listing all his annoying qualities, and she's just like, and then you're just so sexy. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, yes,
Call me
you
sexy.
are. No lies detected there.
Yeah. You know, I gotta switch it up on you, Mercedes, as I do.
God.
I'm taking George home in in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. He's not my type at all. I'm not about this vegan vegetarian life. I'm not
Yeah.
outdoorsy. I do love pets, but Edward Burns is so sexy to me. His voice, it's like that kind of like raspiness about it.
Mhm.
I just love it. I want him to just talk and like read stories to me and just like whisper in my ear all the time. But also he's aging like fine wine. He has aged so well. So
That is gnarly to me because I have zero, probably -% attraction to this man. I'm so sorry, Edward Burns, but you are not it for me. So this is shocking to
oh
me.
my gosh. But I love his character. He's so sweet. I don't like how he literally fell in love with someone he doesn't even know. But that's kind of a red flag. But still.
I don't like how he, I don't know, had to test out his chemistry with Jane at the end. Like, I was like, we didn't need that scene of them in the office because he really does use her and was just like, oh, yeah, you're always there when I need you. And that's what clicks in her head of being like, no, actually, I'm not. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Okay. Marry, smooch, ghost, Mercedes. Who are you marrying? Who are you smooching? And who are you ghosting?
I'm clearly marrying Kevin. I'm in love with him.
Clearly.
Honestly, I think I'd smooch the taxi driver and then I'd ghost George.
Okay, that's a tough one. This is just going off of how Kevin acted for the majority of the movie. I'm going to marry George. I'm going to smooch Ziggy the taxi driver. And I'm going to ghost Kevin. I know.
Oh my God.
Like I said, Mercedes, when I say that I can't do cynics, I will never interact with another cynic ever again if I could help it. It's the way that you feel completely empty at the end of a conversation with a cynic. And I hate that feeling. It literally takes so much out of me. I don't know if I could do it with Kevin. I really don't.
I feel like I don't know any true cynics because I've been trying to think about it through this. And even the way that they described Kevin, I was like, I don't think you're a cynic. I think you're just hurt. And you haven't been able to get over it because you won't go to therapy.
Yeah, but like that's the whole thing is like how many people are unwilling to go to therapy and get help. If you would like to meet a cynic, Mercedes, I'm happy to introduce you to my ex because you will see what I'm saying. It's rough in those streets. Like, all right, guys. Before we wrap it up, we always love to bring in a pop culture moment, and I just think it's funny. I was reading about James Marsden, obviously, and I just think it's funny how people still come up to him talking about The Notebook, which happened like 18 years ago, was it?
Yeah, 2004.
2004, and they were still going out to be like, I'm Team Lawn. Like, I know, right? Is that so cute?
You know what's great? In this movie, he's finally the guy who gets the girl. And in like Enchanted, he's not. In the Notebook, he's not.
Aww. We're happy for each other. What do you have?
Oh my gosh. So Melora Hardin, who plays Kevin's editor, so she also plays the editor-in-chief in The Bold Type, the Freeform show. And I kept thinking about how these things must exist in the same universe. Like, this is canon now because she's an editor in one and then editor-in-chief. Like, and then The Bold Type came out like years later. So that would have been her promotion anyway.
Ah,
amazing.
That's so cool that you think like that. That is really cool. I would have known. That's awesome. I also, too, I'm really looking forward to the sequel to Enchanted, Disenchanted. We talked about this last week, but it's coming out soon, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see how they spin that.
And it was filmed in your favorite country.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
What?
My whole heart just exploded. Thank you for that, Mercedes. But listeners, we want to hear from you. What did you guys think about 27 Dresses? Do you guys go to a lot of weddings? Are you happy that Jane finally developed a backbone? Do you like the fact that Kevin is a cynic? Make sure to slide into our DMs at MeetCute. Again, I'm Kendra. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Ken10Hollywood.
Yes, and I've been Mercedes. You can find me at MercedesGB11 on IG, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you're looking for new rom-coms, follow Meet Cute wherever you listen to podcasts and follow Meet Cute on socials everywhere. Bye, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, here's how Miro works. See, it's amazing.
What's everyone doing at David's desk?
Ever since marketing started using Miro's collaborative online whiteboard, he thinks all our other teams should sign up.
Why?
He says Miro's making his meetings disappear. And if every team gets on it, that means even less meetings. They're using Miro for brainstorms, mind maps, customer research.
So could we use Miro instead of having another 100 meetings for every round of feedback?
Yep. You can comment, react to ideas, even leave a recording on the board.
And what about presentations?
There are Miro templates for that.
How do you know so much about Miro?
I've actually been using it all along. I just used a Miro board to plan the best vacation.
Okay, I'm on board.
See how Miro users save up to 80 hours every year by meeting less and doing more. Get on board at Miro.com with 3 boards free forever. That's MIRO.com.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on PrizePicks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Hi, Meet Cuties. We're so excited to let you know that you can now binge our newest series, Influence, exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. It's Meet Cute's modern adaptation of Jane Austen's Persuasion, and we know you're going to love it.